Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I will call this Waupaca County Board of Supervisors meeting to order, this regular session on Tuesday, October 28th, 2014. Please press your roll call buttons.
Roll call shows 25 members present, 2 excused.
Next item is our open meeting statement. Clerk Robbins, are they in order? They are in order and have been posted. Please join me in a moment of silent meditation followed by the pledge. And as we stand, please remember our colleagues that are fighting these health challenges. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
May I say something before we approve the agenda?
Before we approve the agenda, Clerk Robbins has...
For the agenda, the orange copy is the final agenda. We have to mail the packets out on Wednesday now because of the mail, so you don't always get the most updated, but it was properly posted and sent to the press, so just so you know that. And also I want to just mention that on your desk you have quite a lot of paper. You should have your pay stub, your voucher for next month, the 2013 DHHS report, a letter from the School District of Manawa. There's some information on a heroin information that UW Extension sent out. There's also a letter informing you of the Towns Association meeting, and then the agenda. And anything else I didn't put on there, so.
We need a motion to approve the agenda. The motion by Supervisor Kussman and a second by Supervisor Rowan. Any other questions or discussion regarding the agenda? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
Likewise, the minutes of the past meeting is in your packet. You need a motion, and there is a motion by Supervisor Gerald Murphy to approve the minutes and a second by Supervisor McClone. Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
Before we bring Mr. Taves up here, I just would like to pass on a message from Vice Chair Gary Barrington. He had called me yesterday and we had a long discussion. He's really doing fine. He's feeling great, could run a marathon, he said. But last week after one of our meetings, he started running a fever, and they took him into Apple Medical Center to watch what was going on. And he thought he might be able to be at the meeting today, but he would have to wear a mask. And he thought with the bugs going around, he thought maybe he'd just stay home this time, but he's doing good. Okay, next we have our financial advisor, Todd Taves of Ehlers Associates.
Good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
I've got 2 items for you this morning. The first is the adoption of a post-issuance compliance policy. Since the last time the county's gone to market, there's been a change to what they call the IRS Form 8038G, and basically what that is every time a governmental entity issues tax-exempt debt, it's a form that gets filled out at closing, basically reports to the IRS that you have a set of tax-exempt obligations outstanding. They've added a question to that that says, do you have a written post-issuance compliance policy? And it's in your interest to be able to check yes to that question to avoid potential unwanted scrutiny from the IRS that may come down the road looking if they feel that you're not or you're not paying attention to the requirements of tax-exempt bonds and have a policy to that effect. So the policy document that was included in your agenda was drafted by your bond attorney, Quarles and Brady, And essentially what it does is it makes the county's finance director the responsible party for making sure that all provisions related to maintenance of tax-exempt status on existing county obligations is maintained. So to that end, we would recommend that you adopt this policy as a precursor to the next action.
There is a motion by Supervisor Fedowitz. Is there a second? There's a second by Supervisor Hendrick. Questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0. Sign that right away.
Shall I proceed with the next item?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
The next item would then be the note sale results. I distributed prior to the meeting a handout, and if you can open up that document, we're going to skip past the first page that says sale day report, and I'm moving to the page that says bid tabulation at the top. We received bids at 1 o'clock yesterday for the sale of $13,815,000 of general obligation promissory notes, as was authorized by the county board earlier this year. We received a total of 4 bids. You see the first and second bid on this page, and then the third and fourth bid on the page thereafter. The winning bid was Hutchinson, Shockley, Early and Company out of Chicago. And the important number, if you look over to the far right column, the true interest rate, that's the basis upon which we award. And in this case, the true interest rate for this obligation is 1.9755%. And we'll talk in just a moment about how that stacks up in terms of where the market is right now. I'm going to skip past the bid tab then, and I'm going to the sizing sheet. It's page 3 in the upper right-hand corner. And when we started this process back in spring, you authorized the issuance of up to $13,815,000. You'll notice in the column that says final, the sizing you're being asked to approve today is $13,680,000, and in the far right-hand column we show the difference. The principal difference is that you receive what's called a premium bid, meaning that the purchaser of the obligations is paying you an amount that's greater than their face value in order to be able to offer a higher interest rate to investors in the secondary market. That bond premium generated as part of that transaction becomes a credit to you. Now, due to state law restrictions, there's limits on what we can do with that. So the first thing we do is we can use it to offset the underwriting discount, which is essentially the purchaser's compensation for their role in the transaction. State law, however, requires that whatever the balance remaining is be placed into your debt service fund and be used to offset a portion of the interest payments that come due. So the important number here is that you receive $246,454, essentially extra cash out of the transaction. Of that, $168,318 will actually come to the county to be able to be used for the interest payments on the debt. And the net result is we're able to downsize the issue by $135,000. So as you act on the resolution, we'll make note of the fact that it is $13,680. And Mary does have a copy provided by her bond counsel yesterday of the final resolution that will be signed that has all the correct sale details in it. Page 4, just for reference, was the estimate I had presented to you back in spring. At that time, between the principal and the interest, we were estimating about $16.2 million in principal and interest costs over the life of the notes. And if you flip to page 5, this shows what actually happened based on the sale. So in the center, we have the actual interest rates. For reference, at the bottom of the blue shaded area, I'm carrying over those numbers from the prior page. And when we roll all that up, including that bond premium, the net effect is you're going to pay about $830,000 less than we would have anticipated back at the time that the sale was authorized. The other thing I would mention is you'll notice there's a column, additional levy for contingency. So as you've been going through your budget setting process, based on what we had estimated, there was going to be a certain debt service requirement because of the fact that the interest rates are so much better, along with the fact that you're receiving this bond premium. It gives you the ability to basically, if you want to maintain a level debt levy, to take those dollars, and in this case you're going to actually be able to use them to offset what would have otherwise been a planned application of fund balance out of your contingency fund. The last couple things I would mention, I'm moving to page 6. Obviously great sale results, and this table just gives you a sense of where the market has been. Essentially, we've seen interest rates coming down fairly steadily since around the time that this sale was authorized. So the fact that we did get such good rates, a true interest rate of just under 2%, is reflective of current market conditions. So you did quite well in the markets. And in part, one of the reasons for that, and I know some of you are probably aware of this, but whenever we go to market, we go through a process of updating the county's bond rating. And the county was upgraded to the rating of AA2. And I'll tell you, that is not an insignificant accomplishment. The ratio of downgrades to upgrades is about 3 or 4 to 1 over the last 5 years. So, you know, this is definitely a good accomplishment for the county. I think you can look at this as a validation of the leadership that the county board has provided, and certainly, you know, I'd commend Heidi as the finance director and really being a good advocate for you in terms of representing the county's financial position to Moody's. So this is really an affirmation that from the investors' standpoint, the rating agency's standpoint, you know, everything is moving in a very positive direction financially for Waupaca County. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Just Todd, do you have any idea how many basis points or whatever we might have gained as a result of that rating?
Yeah, we usually expect it's going to be in the range of about 5 to 10 basis points.
Okay, before any other questions, we'll get a motion on the floor in a second, and then we'll entertain any questions. So is there a motion? Supervisor Zog has made a motion for approval, a second by Mr. Felice. Questions and discussion? Any questions for Todd? Any questions for Heidi? Mr. Fedorowicz.
Just a comment. I mean, sometimes you're lucky and fortunate, but that's a substantial savings that we ended up with right here. Substantial.
Thank you, Mr. Fedorowicz. And Mr. Fedorowicz, of course, you know, as our finance chairman. Any other questions, comments? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25 to 0.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you. One document for Thank you very much.
Thank you. Safe travels. Number 9 is the reading of the 2015 proposed budget. Now we'll ask our finance director to please come forward and explain our budget. With that thick book, we should be out of here about 2:30.
That's just for reference.
I know.
In your packet, when we mailed out the packet, we actually tried to get the budget to you a little bit ahead of time in hopes that the reading of the budget becomes a little bit more of a discussion piece if needed, and gives you a little bit of a heads up of where we're headed for the 2015 proposed budget. Just as a quick side note, I had attached a memo, and of course what we just heard. The numbers obviously changed a little bit because of what the issuance that occurred. But I'm not gonna go and read through this line by line. I'm just going to give you an overall budget process. I'm going to start on page 3 with the budget message. And I'm going to just give you a quick idea of the general overview of the budget process. As you know, we're under the levy limit laws, and the levy limit, you can increase your levy based upon the percentage of net new construction on your prior year's levy. So in for the 2015 budget, our net new construction, and we also had a terminated TID district in the city of Marion. So the combination of those two instances allowed us to increase the budget by 0.661%, or $146,941. Along with that scenario, the debt portion of that levy is not taken into account. This is just for your operating. So we talked about it at the Finance Committee level, and we felt that the 2% increase overall in a levy could be an acceptable amount. And with that, we would increase the overall levy by $491,782. So with that being said, the 146 of allowable, and then we took the remaining and applied that to our debt levy. So that's the budget itself has that's the amount of the increase overall. Some of the key changes in the levy, where these increases came into play, the library aids, which you know is a special purpose levy, that does not apply to the levy limit laws. That increase was a $30,194 request, and that's a 3.18% increase. The second amount was for debt service. The debt service amount increased $120,938. That number has now changed. So this message will be updated to reflect that change, because our debt now just is lower because of what just occurred with the debt issuance. So that number will change a little bit, and I'll go into, when we get to more of a detailed sheet, I can show you what that might look like. In personnel services, the budget recommends a 1.5% increase to the salary schedule. In addition to that, anybody within the STEP system that would move through their STEP system, and then additional, or anybody that's off, redlined within the system will then receive a stipend or a bonus to offset, because they wouldn't they wouldn't get the raise because they're off the system. Those resolutions will need to be authorized by resolution through the county board. We did not increase the budget for any health insurance premium, and in fact, we actually were able to there was a decrease to the WRS contribution in all categories. So there was no increase for that fringe benefit. That fringe benefit was actually decreased slightly. The unemployment comp program, we increased $17,024. That was just rounding up to $30,000. We're seeing kind of a unsteady area in unemployment, so felt that should be increased a little bit. The animal control, as you know, we've had a lot of animal control situations, and we're actually going to have to do a contingency fund transfer for the 2014 budget because of those unforeseen expenses. So we increased, or actually established, a budget for animal control of $30,000. Marketing cooperative, I think you've heard Dave Teal talk about the marketing cooperative that he's involved in. The county's supporting that for $24,000, and that'll be administered by the Waupaca County Economic Development Corp. The biggest change in the 2015 budget is in the area of capital outlay, and that is where you're seeing most of your increase in levy. And as you know, capital outlay is one of those things, as we've gone through the last 5 years to build up our reserves and establish a healthy reserve in order to get that bond rating at least maintained or increased. that's kind of where we've cut in budget processes over the course of the last quite a few years. And so what we did is establish what we're calling a capital replacement program. And at the end of 2014, because our reserve was so healthy, or is so healthy, and we're actually above policy at the end of 2013 by 1.2 million, the Finance Committee would be able to assign $800,000 for the capital replacement program. So at the end of 2014, the balance in that account would be $800,000. And then we would commit to annually levy $800,000. And even though we may not expend that every year, well, at least some years it may be higher than 800, some years it may be lower, but at least we have a 10-year plan. We'll levy the $800,000. Any funds that are not spent of that $800,000 will then be assigned for the purpose of future capital outlay, so that you aren't seeing this fluctuation, and we're still meeting the operational needs of the county departments, because a lot of this outlay is being cut, but it really needs to be maintained in order for some of the departments to actually operate in an efficient manner. So that is our biggest change within the 2015 proposed budget. And so the capital outlay piece of that will then be funded, and then you won't see that fluctuation in future years. We'll just keep it where it's at. So in all those expense changes, some of the changes that we were able to make on the revenue side to help fund those, we had the sales tax revenue projections were increasing by $212,000. And I actually feel that's very conservative. As we're watching the 2014 numbers come in, we're actually going to be able to increase our unassigned fund balance at the end of 2014 because our sales tax revenue is coming in really strong. So that we feel that's even a pretty conservative approach, but you also don't want to go too far over. You're also going to see some new positions coming into as a part of resolutions. Mostly in the Sheriff's Department, the prisoner board revenue, we were able to increase about $324,000. Those positions are mostly funded with this revenue increase. In addition to the revenue increases, we reduced the contingency fund. The contingency fund is budgeted at $50,000, but again, you know, we went to build our reserve up. We were budgeting in contingency. I think we started out at like 300,000, and we've been gradually decreasing this, but because that now we have that healthy reserve built, as long as we maintain that healthy reserve, that 50,000 I think is a pretty good numbered mark. So that was an expense that was decreased. Page 5 just kind of gives you this kind of is the explanation of what I just explained to you about the capital improvement plan. And again, page 6, and I just want to say it out loud, I want to just thank all the committees of jurisdiction, Finance and Human Resources Committee, and the department heads. Again, I think we've put together a really sound budget. I think it's going to really help in the future for capital outlay, and I think it's in the best interest of the taxpayers and the county board and everybody involved. So I want to thank everybody for the time and effort that we put into this budget. I think it's a good base, and I think we'll have a good year going forward. One thing I just want to, I'm going to skip up to page 21. And this is the reserves that I'm talking about. And what I would, based upon what we just saw from Ellers on this resolution, I just want to tell you what this is going to look like, what I perceive it's going to look like. I'm assuming this will be going to Finance Committee, and they'll make a recommendation as to how we would take that $291,186 and what Todd had referred to. If you look about halfway down, we have that assigned fund balance for capital outlay. This is that $800,000 that the Finance Committee would be assigning at the end of 2014. We were budgeting the $800,000 for capital outlay, but we had an additional $390,786 above and beyond that $800,000. So instead of using $390,786, we would be reducing this fund balance applied by $291,000. So that would just give us a larger base start out on that capital replacement program. That's what I would anticipate that to how we would utilize that $291,000. And then, so these are the fund balances that are budgeted to be used. All these are, but there's no unassigned fund balance used to balance this budget. The biggest amount of used fund balance is in the restricted area in your capital projects. These are the capital projects that will be utilizing the bond issuance to purchase. So that's where that restricted fund balance usage, that's the largest amount of fund balance that we're using. But there is no unassigned usage to balance this budget. Page 22 are the new positions that'll be coming to you via resolution or summary of position changes. This would be everything that we have for the position changes for 2015 budget. And then if you skip up, the rest of it is the authorized positions. If these are all approved, this would be the authorized position count for the departments. And then page 30 and 31, this is our capital outlay expenditures for 2015. This is what is budgeted. And just so that just so everybody is understanding of how we anticipate this to work, the actual levy will occur in the general fund. And then, so that fund balance will be assigned in the general fund. This doesn't give free reins to us to spend for capital outlay. You will still only be able to spend for capital outlay what has been approved by the county board through the budget process. That assigned fund balance will be administered by the Finance Committee. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware. And then that assigned fund balance will remain in the general fund in order to keep the health reserve in the general fund. And there will be no fund balance in the capital projects fund except for your unspent bond proceeds that are restricted for that purpose. I just want to make sure that you know, we've talked about that at the Finance Committee level. We'll hopefully get a policy in place so that everybody understand, well, we won't hopefully, we will get a policy in place. And I'm intending on that to happen in the very near future, where the policy indicates how that's going to work. But I just want a comfort level here to let you know that even though we're levying those dollars, the only amounts that will be spent are the ones that are approved in the budget. And if any changes are made, that will have to come through the process. Page 32, as you know, highway construction is billed back to the Transportation Services or Capital Projects Fund. So these are the projects that the highway department has in their budget. So you kind of have the same construction projects in two separate funds. That's what so you kind of call those out because these are actually billed back to a different fund. So they're kind of double expenditures. So that's why we kind of call those out. And then you can see how those are funded. And then page 33 and 34 just gives you a budget summary by fund and what the tax levy is going to be in 2015 and what your tax levy will be in 2014 and where your increases and decreases are. And again, this number will change because our debt service will actually the expenditure will still be there, but we'll have revenue to offset that because that $168,000 coming in for revenue will offset that expense. And then 35 and 36, this is really the budget by department. And then as you can go further into the book, it gives you a little more detail. And then I have, I think, over 600 pages posted on the website if you really want to get into the detail. I would be more than happy to print that out for you upon request. But that is, it is posted to the website, so the detail by department, so you can see where the revenue is coming, where their expenditures are going. Each committee of jurisdiction does approve that at that level, but this is the summary piece of it. I'm actually going to end there, but if you want more, I will go further, but I guess I would like your direction, because I could read this whole book, but I don't know if we all want to do that, so.
Well, Heidi, why don't we entertain some questions first here and see where we want to go? Questions thus far with Heidi's presentation? Mr. Fedowitz.
Again, from the Finance Committee, I mean, we did recommend and have looked at this very thoroughly. But to compliment Heidi again and everybody involved, all the departments over the years, this was just the perfect year to adopt what we're going to do going forward. Without that 800,000 or without having a substantial amount in the unassigned fund balance, we could have not pulled this off.
No. This is a, this budget actually represents something that at the department head level, back when I first came on board as finance director, this is something we've talked about over and over again, but there was really no way that we could implement it, because without that healthy reserve, there was no way to implement it, because you had to build that reserve up. And I think that the department heads have done, and employees across the board, there's been some really good management of the funds. And again, if, you know, an upgrade to your bond rating tells you that it's been a good few years, and we've done a really good job. And I commend everybody, everybody. I think we've done a really good job.
Any questions? Well, I too, as your county board chair, wanted to continue to thank the department heads, management team through the years. And this year especially, all of us kept on hearing this 2015 budget is going to be a bear. And it was a bear. But because of your management team and your help and all the time you put in, and then it went to Heidi and her department. And you know, I have to say that this is one of the few years I've seen Heidi actually relaxed at times. She's got a whole beautiful head of hair this year, because she was pulling it out in previous years. And also I want to tell you that she had a great ally with her, our finance chair, Dwayne Fedowitz, who, as you know, was a finance professional all his life. And he spent a lot of time with Heidi going over just of what we are putting into effect this year. And they were really a great team. So I just, again, want to say thank you, everyone. It's sure great to see all the department heads, management team members here too today. So thanks a lot, Heidi. Are there any other questions? Anything else you want to present, Heidi?
I just, on the memo that I sent with the budget, I don't think it's actually in the budget document. I did send my contact information. I believe my phone, my direct line, along with my email address. So, I mean, it's a lot to throw at you. I know it's a lot of numbers, but if at any point up until the public hearing, or there's any questions you have, feel free to contact me, email me, call me, stop in. If I'm there. But no, and I'm more than happy to answer some more, you know, direct questions as you review it and look through it. If there's anything that comes up, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. And again, we'll have the public hearing again to go over it, but just wanted to let you know that.
And on that note, the public hearing is Wednesday, November 12th. And that changes because the 11th, the second Tuesday, falls on Veterans Day, and by statute, we cannot have our board meeting that day. So just make a note that it will be Wednesday, November 12th for the public hearing at 9 o'clock.
Okay. Anything else from you, Heidi?
Not for me.
I think you can be dismissed.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to ask Highway Commissioner Dean Steingraber to come forth and of course, talk a little bit about the November 4th transportation funding referendum. It sure is a big item around the state right now. And his colleague Jill.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm going to kind of wait till we get this up on the screen. You did, I believe, received a handout in your packet, given some detail on the transportation fund. I believe you received that. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to ask. We also have another item here that we want to put up on the screen, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to read that. You may not be able to read it, but I'm just going to go over, there's 5 things that we think that you need to know about transportation, measure in this November 4th constitutional amendment. And obviously, we want to see a positive vote here on November 4th. And we think it's as simple as user fees going towards what they were intended for into transportation. And we're talking gas tax when you pump your fuel into your cars, and when you do your registration fees. We want that to be locked in, that it is used for transportation funds. And in the past, what we've had was people would kind of do some shell games a little bit with that, and we're just saying the public doesn't want that. The public doesn't, they want to know where that money is going. I know some of our highway committee members, myself, you probably talk about what can we do, what should we do to generate more revenue for fixing roads or what have you. And more often than not, when you talk to people, they say, just so long as whatever money you're using goes into those highways, they're good with that. They do not want it to be, put into other areas. And the 5 things that we have up here, this amendment to constitutionally protect the transportation fund is just common sense. And Wisconsin's economy can't grow without a healthy transportation network. The gas tax and vehicle registration fees we all pay, we're always intended to fund the upkeep of the system. And I think that's our number 1 common sense thing that we want to be stressing. Number 2, most states have constitutional language limiting the use of transportation revenues already. Wisconsin doesn't. And we're just trying to get that where we will be in that same position that many other states already are. Number 3, the push for the amendment began and remains a grassroots bipartisan movement. It started at the local level. The people are asking for this. I know the county board, I don't know how many years ago, endorsed it. Our voters endorsed it when they went and had that the first referendum voted on. And again, when we go, out there to both, at the state legislature, both the Republicans and Democrats have been supporting that. Number 4, experience has shown that state laws to safeguard the user fees don't work. Sometimes we get into those tough budget debates and you go, go grab it from the transportation fund. And we're trying to have this constitutional amendment that will not allow that, so that will be just off limits. And number 5, the Wisconsin legislature, and I said this already, passed a joint resolution in 2 consecutive sessions to place this item before the voters. Both times the item passed by an overwhelming margin and with bipartisan support. The proposed constitutional amendment on the November 2014 ballot does nothing more than require that gas tax and registration fee dollars remain in the transportation fund to be used to pay for the transportation system we rely on every day. So again, we're supporting that. And if we turn to the next page here, this is a pretty impressive group of supporters here. If you look at this list, these people usually are fighting each other. Usually they're not working together. In this particular constitutional amendment, all these groups are working together. Some of them locally that we see, the East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, they are supporters. Wisconsin Counties Association are supporters. Wisconsin Economic Development Association are supporters, Wisconsin Towns Association are supporters. Those are groups that typically do work together. But all of a sudden you get into the operating engineers, different groups in there that a lot of times are fighting. In this particular case here, everybody is supporting it. So it is a pretty impressive group of people that have endorsed it, have studied it, and are trying to look for that support to have that constitutional amendment to protect the transportation fund in the future. So any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean. That's a hot topic wherever we go. I'll give a little report. I was down to the WCA board meeting in Milwaukee, and that was also a very hot topic. It was talked about a lot. Next, we will have DHHS Director Chuck Price with his annual report and updates.
Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be able to spend the next hour and a half or 2 hours with you talking about Health and Human Services. Just kidding. We'll try to go through this fairly quickly. It seems a little odd to be talking about, I know on the agenda it says 2013 annual report. What I'll try to be able to do today is kind of give you the 10,000-foot view of what 2013 might have looked like. You've got some of those numbers in your handout and things like that. We're not going to go page by page through that. I'll kind of give you some generalities about what happened in 2013, give you some updates about how that's translated into what we've been doing in 2014 and how that's preparing us to move into 2015. I believe that our placemats have been passed out with our organizational chart. So those are as current as of this week. New staff came on board. Just as a reminder, Health and Human Services located up on second floor, and then we've got our off-site WCI location as well. There are approximately between 8 main service areas, and you see some of those 8 service areas are broken down even further under some of those respective service areas. But we have approximately 120 full-time staff. 100 of those staff approximately reside on second floor here, and the others are out at the WCI facility. In general, when you look at 2013, 2014, going into 2015, our budget is in that general area of about $16 million, with about $3.1 million of those dollars coming from levy, which is about somewhere just shy of 20% of our budget comes from county levy, which means majority of our budget comes from state, federal, and other grants that come in. So we'll just jump off from there. If we can go to the next slide. When we talk about what's been going on with Department of Health and Human Services over the last couple of years, I'm a quote person, so this quote from Socrates kind of fills in for me what we've been working on. It's the secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. And so if we flip to what we've been working on, 2013, I'd just label that as the year of change. And we talk the things that we've got bulleted up here: trauma-informed care, adverse childhood experiences. All of our staff were trained in these 2 general areas, these 2 initiative areas in April of 2013, and this training, these initiatives have formed our foundation moving forward about how our agency is going to practice, how we're going to treat the customers that we serve. This helped us develop with all of our staff a common language about how we're going to deliver the services to the folks in our county and the community. We did this as an all-staff training for all staff a year and a half ago. Since that time, and we'll talk about it some more in the presentation, we've developed a new staff orientation. As new staff come on board, every staff member gets a 2-hour training. So we could talk for about 2 hours today if you want to on trauma-informed care and adverse childhood experiences. But all of our staff get a 2-hour training on what this means. It doesn't matter what your position is in the agency, whether you're a receptionist, social worker, therapist, production worker, everybody gets this training. It's really provided an agency direction for us So all things that we develop, that we talk about when we're recruiting, all are based on this initiative here of trauma-informed care and ACEs. And we've really become a state leader in this area, have been asked to present, and folks have come to see what some of these changes are that we're doing here in the agency. And I don't have the fourth one, but really 2013 was probably the year of 4 R's. As a result of some of these changes, some of these directions, we had retirements, resignations, which led to some restructuring and recruitment. And so 2013, just in terms of some numbers, we had 7 retirements in 2013. 3 of those were in the management area. And then also with the management area, just to talk about that more specifically, we had 2 managers resign their positions as well. So in 2013, we had at least 5 new managers come on board. The 2 resignations, I'll just note that one of the managers had started her own business, and then the other manager became director of Kewaunee County Department of Health and Human Services. Restructuring, we restructured our fiscal unit, which I think Heidi's grateful for that at this point anyways. We've moved through 2014. We restructured our children and families area, moving from 1 supervisor over 17 folks to 2 supervisors to provide some supportive supervision, which has, as we'll talk about 2014, has helped with our retention and recruitment. In terms of recruitment, when we talk about establishing agency direction and we talk about where are we going as an agency, sometimes that sits with folks and sometimes it doesn't resonate real well. And so we did have a bit of a recruitment issue or recruitment kind of constant, and Mandy can probably attest to that in her office. And so I believe that the numbers looking at 2013, we had about 30 plus recruitments going on in 2013 from all across the different parts of our department. And those, again, are a result of retirements, recruitment, resignations, restructuring, and growth. But it did cause us to be in interview mode quite a bit. Go home and ask my kids interview questions at the dinner table. And what are you going to do in 5 years? And so we've also, it's not on this list, but we also launched into a continuous quality improvement process, starting with our children and families area, which historically has had the most turnover in that area. And so looking at different ways to do business within our children and families area, getting the opinions and including staff and management into that process as well. So that's 2013 as a snapshot. With all those things going on, we still managed to come in the black, which was great, and continue to work on the day-to-day as well as these bigger chunk things. So 2014, this year, is what I'd probably dub as the year of building. So we've gone through those changes, we've gone through those types of things, and now what do we start doing with those changes? You got to start working at it. And so we've continued to work on restructuring. In 2014, we've restructured, and the board here has given us the okay, or had given us the okay, to move forward with a deputy director structure, and we do have that in place, and it's working great so far. We've established a trauma-informed care coordinator, so going back to 2013 for trauma-informed, that's been important enough and growing area enough for us to put a trauma-informed care coordinator in place. We've restructured public health a bit, and we're currently working with the ADRC, or Aging and Disability Resource Unit, to look at what are we doing there in terms of efficiencies and capacity. Retention rates, now this is wood. Retention rates this year for Department of Health and Human Services, we've had 2 resignations year to date for the whole department. And I think historically, for those of you who've been around, I think those numbers are pretty impressive. And that speaks a lot to the work of the management, speaks a lot to the piece that I was referring to in terms of agency direction and foundation of what we're building our agency around. The vacancies and recruitments that we have had, because I'm sure you've seen those, have been as a result of retirements and growth, and so that those are good natural ways to have those recruitments. In terms of recruitment, orientation, and support, we've been very intentional on how we recruit to the mission, how we recruit to what we're trying to do with Health and Human Services. And so you can have the qualifications and things like that. We want to make sure that what you're bringing to the table is going to help support the mission that we're saying that we're all about. And so I think that's definitely helped with the retention piece. The new staff orientation is something new for us, and we go over all these pieces that I'm talking about with new staff, and they're continually supported and reminded of those things. And in terms of support, there's been consistent, constant agency trainings. We've looked at secondary trauma for our staff, so those folks that are dealing with some of the most difficult cases, we're working with them to support them in those positions, because it's very hard work that a lot of our staff are involved with. And so all of the direction and all the agency pieces that we're working on is about supporting the staff so they can support the families and individuals that they're working with. It's allowed us to really come across and be recognized and given some grant opportunities. At least 3 of our program areas have been given grant dollars to be able to expand. So some of those recruitments that we're doing are a result of expansion dollars because of the work that's going on in our hallways. A couple new programs are coming our way in 2015 as a result of some of this work as well. Alternative response within our children and families area, a new way of doing child protection services, and so that's exciting for us. We've developed new partnerships, including enhancing and establishing and reestablishing local resources and local partnerships. We have regional partnerships with our close counties to the south in developing and looking for more access to community mental health. At the state level, we've, including myself and a variety of staff and managers, have been asked to participate on state committees and provide some direction for where practice is going across the state. And we've reached out and have developed a partnership with a national foundation out of Seattle that looks at changing how we do child welfare. And those types of pieces are going to help with a lot of the programming that we've got lined up for 2015. And so as a result of those pieces, recognition for the work being done in DHHS has started to occur. The award from that we had presented to the WCI folks a couple weeks ago, and then the different, like I'd mentioned in the bullet before, a variety of committees and presentations and things like that that both myself and staff and managers are being asked to either attend or be a part of or present at. So then 2015, looking to take all these things that we're building and how do we then launch that, and looking at 2015 as the good to great year. So taking what we're doing, saying we're doing a good job, but how do we take that to the next level? And I don't know if any of you have read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, but this is really what this comes from. It's more of a business-related book, private industry-related book, but it really fits with what we're trying to do as well. It's around leadership development. All of our managers have read the book as a book club facilitated discussion just among ourselves. And we've had at least 2 groups of staff read the book as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end here. That last bullet speaks to that. So 2015, we're going to continue our quality improvement processes. We're looking to develop a community of hope, or really kind of embedding and educating the community about the different pieces that we're working on, so that it's not just Health and Human Services that's doing some of the systems change, but it's a pure systems change. It's about talking to our stakeholders, talking to the folks that we work with on a regular basis about these changes that we're doing and how they could impact the community and how we work together in the community. We'll continue to, the expansion of services, looking to revamp and look at our foster parent program and how can that be bolstered or enhanced, and continued expansion of our coordinated services team. The alternative response that I mentioned, we're continuing to look at how do we deliver services in the realms of public health and mental health. And within those realms, continue to push the envelope on out-of-the-box ways to do the work. And the concepts at the bottom here relate right back to the book Good to Great. The BHAG is the big, hairy, audacious goal. And so for us, we put it out there with our staff and with our managers that our big, hairy, audacious goal is to be the model health Department of Health and Human Services in the state, and for that matter, why not the region or country? And so if you put that goal out there, similar to when you talk sports, you don't practice and do your work just to be mediocre. You want to make sure that you're doing everything right and in a sense, kind of create a culture of excellence, and we'll talk about that. The hedgehog concept is just a simple concept. If you do the simple things right, it can make a huge impact, and I'll talk about that just on the next slide here. And the flywheel, it's about putting a system in place. And so when we talk about orientation and recruitment and things along those lines, it's about putting a system in place. And so going back to the sports theme, if you look at your New England Patriots, you look at your San Francisco Giants, there's a system in place. Year after year, people come and go, but the system is still there. And so someday with the Brewers, maybe. Royals, there you go. So that gives you just a snapshot of what we'll be looking to work on in 2015. And how we're going to do that, these are the principles that we've established through trauma-informed care. There's a lighthouse in the middle. Lighthouses are the calm and the storm, the beacon, so that's why I put that there. But it really, when you look at this, when we talk about the hedgehog concept and doing simple concepts, the pieces that are up here aren't rocket science. And when it comes to those of us in the helping profession, these should be pretty easy things to get centered around and get grounded on. And so our staff are reminded of this. We talk about this in our recruitments and interviews. Jerry could probably recite these off from the interviews he sat in. And it's talked about at our new staff orientations and then just about every chance we get at staffings and all staff meetings. And then one of the last slides we have here is you have to do that through leadership. The management team has been outstanding, especially throughout 2014 here. Over the course of the last month or so, the management team has worked on this leadership charter, and you probably can read that real clear from where you're sitting, right? I'll just read it, what I've got here. This occurred through a facilitated process, developing a unified front back to staff about what are we as management saying that we're going to do for you, for the agency. And so the leadership charter is, as it states, as leaders in our organization, we believe our core values guide us in our work with colleagues, clients, and community members. We commit our passion and professionalism to incorporate the following principles in all that we do. We will model a trauma-informed approach. We will apply civility in each interaction. We will inspire future leaders and support all those who seek guidance. We promote collaboration and the building of trusting relationships. We seek to be the center of excellence in our community. We promise to be strength-based, practice humility, promote equality, spark creativity, encourage and demonstrate compassion, and engage in civic duty as public servants. We strive to deliver superior services with distinctive, lasting impact on the health of individuals, families, and our community. So then the last quote that I have, and that's pretty small up there as well, is from Zig Ziglar. And far too many people have no idea what they can do because all they've been told is what they can't do. We've kind of given our staff some freedom to be creative, and when you do that and let their passions go, some pretty incredible stuff can happen. I think we're starting to see that as we've kind of filled the seats with some pretty great folks. And so that's my quick run through of 2013, 14, and 15. Any questions or comments?
Questions for Chuck? I guess not, Chuck, but I want to thank you and your staff and your board for the great job you do.
Thank you. Thanks, Lana.
And at this time, we'll take a short break. Just update you on the chair's report. I apologize, I wasn't able to make it to the WCA convention with you, and I guess we had a nice turnout. I just was not able to get around too well. I'm fighting a hip situation, and Mark O'Connell had mentioned we could get you a motorized scooter, but with my luck, I'd run someone over the darn thing in a hotel, and I'd really be in trouble. So I bypassed. Just a few things here. I want to congratulate Supervisors Pullman for being on the WCA Health and Human Services Steering Committee, and also Pat Craig for being on the Finance and Taxation Steering Committee for Wisconsin counties. I really thank you for your efforts to make WCA everything it is and have great representation for our county. It really means a lot. So thanks for your efforts. And then after the conference, I got a call from Mark O'Connell, and I found myself back in the WCA board, which I truly enjoy, and he wanted me back. And I'll be able to bring a lot of resources to you, as I'm going to explain shortly, from the WCA board meetings. We did have a board meeting at Milwaukee a week ago at the Iron Horse Hotel. I don't know if any of you ever been there, heard of the place. It's south of Wisconsin Avenue, and once was a real industrial district. and now they redid some of these old factories and buildings, and they made a hotel out of it. It was very interesting. There's a train track right outside our hotel that was going through past out during the night. We had furnace pipes in our room. It was a way back thing, but it was really kind of a neat place. So hard to get to, and no parking either. They park your car for you for $30. But I have to tell you too, somebody asked me about being in a WCA. Is that a Waupaca County per diem? It is not. I know we're fighting a per diem overage here this year. A lot of us went to a lot of meetings for good reasons, but maybe sometime we'll have to cut back a little bit and just go to the conferences and meetings that your committee is, that means something to your committee. But no, the WC, regarding myself and the board, they pay my lodging, they pay my per diem, my meals, and actually mileage and any expenses I have, so it's got nothing to do with Waupaca County. Talking about the resources we can bring back from the board meetings, this is what I get sent to after the WCA board meeting. I gave this to Mary Robbins, and she's going to forward it to you on your computer. We had Willie Johnson as a new WCA president, and our meeting was nearly 5 hours. So he has not run a lot of meetings before, and he let people talk too much and ask too many questions. You've got to cut them off. And therefore, these are presentations that were made, and when Mary forwards you to this, you can go and open it up in your computer, and you can listen to the presentations that I'm privy to. There were some real interesting ones. Andy Phillips was there and did a presentation. He's always interesting with terrific knowledge and got a great presentation voice. Bruce Stelzner was there, Chippewa County Highway Commissioner, and he gave a great presentation. You all must know Bruce, and you can listen to that. And there was a presentation by Todd Berry, Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance, which was just outstanding. Of course, he's nonpartisan and gives you facts and figures on Wisconsin's budget problems, Wisconsin's challenges, and even challenges that will be passed on to the counties, and how we may even find ways to correct these challenges. Some are very interesting, especially hearing Dean about the transportation funding. There's many ideas out there how to fund the transportation whole of $700 million. And one interesting was there's some talk about adding the sales tax on top of the gas tax when you buy a gallon of gas. That's just an idea, but there's tons of ideas. But when you listen to him, he's a great speaker. It'll be interesting of some of the ideas that they have that might be talked about by our legislators, but not too loudly because it's election time coming up. I have to tell you too that I hate to give a health update, but you know, I couldn't go to the convention because I'm sure a lot of you had hips replaced, and they say it's a piece of cake, but you never like to get cut into twice in 1 year, which I have once already. And of course, I go to therapy, and my young therapist told me, you know what, Dick, you should come to the rec center. And I used to go to the rec center all the time. I don't live there like Dwayne does, but I used to go there a lot. And he says, I'm going to come up there at 6 one morning. I'm going to put you through the exercises at the rec center. What's going to help your back for your surgery and also your hip? And he did. He was nice enough to walk me through the different machines, the treadmills, and I shouldn't go over 1.5 on the treadmill, shouldn't go over 8 minutes. And I progressed in the last number of weeks, 4 weeks. In fact, yesterday I went 2.5 miles on the treadmill, and not just the treadmill, but the other cardio machines. And I was really feeling good until the afternoon. All of a sudden, I sounded like 1,000 bees in my hip, and I think I must have overdid it. So ironically, my surgeon office called and said, Dick, you had planned on surgery December 2nd. We haven't heard from you. Ironic that they would call. I said, you know, mark me in. So that's kind of what I'm having planned, and I think I could be back at the county board meeting a few weeks after. So that's with that. And another thing that I felt bad when the Royals weren't mentioned here. Our Kansas City Royals, Waupaca County's Kansas City Royals now,
You know, it's such a big thing in Clintonville. There are ribbons tied around many people's trees, blue ribbons and Go Royals. And actually, it was the mastermind of the former city administrator there, who on her way to Appleton called me, she was buying material to make these ribbons for everybody. Can I put one in your house? I says, well, sure you can, Lisa, go ahead. And they're all over the place in Clintonville. Plus, I have a kind of an in with the Royals, what's going on. Mike Jersley's, the third base coach's, would be brother-in-law, has coffee with me every morning. And they're down there now. They left yesterday noon and to watch the Royals. They stay in a hotel right across the Royal Stadium. And they were there before. And he comes back and he says, you know what? Mike took us out to dinner one night. And the waiter came up and says, you're all from Wisconsin. Where did you find tickets? And of course, Mike's the third base coach. He sat there, and no one knew him, and he just said nothing. But he was saying that, you know, Mike Jersley really looks drawn. He is really tired. And what we forget about a third base coach is probably the second most stressful position in baseball, because as a third base coach, you have to know the strengths of everybody else's arms out there of the other team, and you have to know the strengths of your players, of course, which Mike does, the speed, who might have a pulled muscle and can't run fast. And he's the guy sending these important runners to third base. A few weeks ago, he sent the slowest runner, Billy Butler, home around third base. I thought, oh, what are you doing, Mike? And Billy Butler just slid safely underneath the tag. But another thing that's stressful for Mike is the fact that when he gets to the dugout, he's responsible for placement of their infield. So on the plane and off the plane, he goes to computer reports and sees where every Giant batter has a tendency to hit the ball. Is he a pull hitter? Does he hit up the middle? And also, you have to know your pitcher. Is he going to be pitching him inside, outside? Because if we're pitching him outside, he's most generally going to go to the opposite field or hit up the middle. So he has to know the pitching plan for every hitter on the Giants and every Giant's hitting tendencies. So sometimes you see the Royals' second baseman out in the right field because that guy's a pull hitter and they're going to pitch him inside. So those are all stressful things that Mike is going through. His mind is constantly working. It's not just waving runners around. We forget that. So what I would really like to do when he does get home, he's a very bashful guy and he doesn't like to talk in public, but I'd like to bring him here and give a little presentation of what the World Series and the year was like. Because, you know, he toiled in the minors and for a long time and in AAA for 11, 12 years. And I'd like to bring his dad with him too. His dad's got a hard time getting around, and they're all my coffee group in the winter. We sit together and every morning and have coffee. And I'd like to introduce Don, because he, unfortunately for you from New London, scored 7 touchdowns against New London in high school. When was that, 51 or 52 or something like that?
You had to bring it up, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. But Don, it's going to be hard to get here, but he really needs to be here and come with Mike if I can get those guys here. And I'm probably looking at the January meeting because Mike leaves for spring training already in February. With that being said, I think that's about it. I thank you for your cooperation and everything with the county budget so far, and also with the bonding issue previously, and your approval of the rating today. Are there any other conference reports that someone may have been to a conference? Okay. We'll go to ordinances or amendments to the General Code of Ordinances. A, repeal Chapter 11, Code of Ordinances, Land Record Access.
That was in your packet entirely, and Ian Grasshoff is here if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, we can move forward.
There's a motion by Mr. Chrisman for approval. Do we have a second? A second by Mr. Jones. Any questions or discussion? Supervisor Craig.
When we delete that, Ian, as you know, had put on the second page that he wanted, that the current subscription-based system should remain in place until all the current account subscriptions have expired. Do we need a motion and a note of that effect so that's official?
Yeah, Dennis, did you want to include that in your motion? That what's current? Yeah, I'll put it in here as he has it worded
Okay,
then. If
thanks.
that's okay with everybody.
Any other, questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0 to repeal Chapter 15 with the notes as stated.
Next item is amend Chapter 34, 2014-560, Town of Caledonia, Gary and Loretta Rohrhorn from RR District to AWT District. Two adjoining parcels to be same zoning district. There's a motion by Supervisor Craig for approval. Do we have a second? Supervisor Penny seconded it. Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
Item C is to amend Chapter 34, 2014-561, Town of Matson, George and Judy Kunez. Did I say that right, Mr.? From AR District to RR District for creation of two parcels and an additional development right for residential development. There is a motion by Supervisor Fedowitz. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Wilfer. Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
Let us go on to resolutions. Resolution number 11, Waupaca County Solid Waste Management Board of seeking a full restoration of municipal recycling grant funding to its original annual level of $32 million. The motion by Mr. Zog. Second by Mr. Sorensen. Questions or discussion?
I'd just like to say, Mr. Chairman, that this is a similar situation to what our highway commissioner talked about regarding highway funds. And Waupaca County absorbed a $90,000 shortfall in our recycling program, and we think that's wrong, and that's why this was initiated.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen. Any other comments, discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
Next is resolution number 13, 14-15, staffing new positions, expansions, eliminations for 2015, human resources. You probably heard this already. There's a motion by Supervisor Johnson, a second by Supervisor Jonley. Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
Resolution number 14, 14-15, 2015 Waupaca County Employee Wages and Salaries. Human Resources. Is there a motion for approval? There's a motion by Mr. McClone, and a second by Mary Kay Pullman. Any questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
Resolution number 15, 14-15, new positions at the Waupaca County Highway Department from the Department of Human Resources Committee. There's a motion by Supervisor Fleece and a second by Supervisor Muck. Questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
We have a number of appointments. Clerk Robbins will read those.
And just a note that resolution number 12 wasn't missed on here, but it needs to go to legislative and judicial at their meeting next month, so that'll be concerning Stratton Lake District. Okay, appointments. City of Waupaca Tax Incremental District number 6, appoint Jack Spearings. And Jack, I have some information for you if they do approve it. Lakeview Manor Research Committee, Supervisor Dave Newman as chairman, Supervisor Mary Kay Pullman, Supervisor Patricia Craig, Supervisor Gary Barrington, and County Board Chair Dick Keppen. I would appreciate if there would be a motion separate for the TID District number 6. Jack.
Okay, we'll vote separately for Mr. Spearings being on the TID district. Is there a motion for approval? There's a motion by Supervisor Pullman, a second by Supervisor Craig. Questions or discussions, comments? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
And next, the motion for the Lakeview Manor Research Committee that I appointed. There's a motion by Supervisor Questman. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Spearings. Questions or comments? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0.
Announcements and correspondence, of course, were in your packet.
Excuse me. And/or on your desk.
I would like to encourage anyone who is concerned about the heroin problem in Waupaca County to attend the heroin seminar November 7th, 8:30 in Manawa Masonic Hall.
That's a good point, Supervisor Boyer. You know, I take part in the Shawano County situation at the Shawano Medical Center, being on the board there, and they've asked me recently, you know, about what are you doing in Waupaca County? Of course, heroin is prevalent there too, and even to the county north of them. And our emergency room is getting busier and busier with heroin overdoses. It's getting to be an epidemic up there, and it's just spreading all over so fast. So that's a good point. Any other questions or discussion?
I do have another announcement. If you have your vouchers and it looks good, please turn those in today if you can, because our Finance Committee meets earlier next month because of the annual budget meeting. So appreciate that. Thanks.
Supervisor Asa made a motion to adjourn. There's a second by Supervisor Handrick. Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 25-0. The meeting is adjourned.